June, I think. So that we had a month out there for people to be able to grasp it, understand it, and ask questions. And so that, then it came back after that month for a vote at the last commission. So I guess it was July actually, because we voted on it in August.
Yeah.
So we had that month. During that month, I think one of the things that was very important was some of the feedback that we got from the community. I had gone to Tom Irwin at Civic Progress. I had gone to Kathy Osborne at the Regional Business Council, and I'd gone to Joe Reagan. And right before we had the advising them that we were going to do this, I wanted to know their feelings. They had looked at the membership, talked with some of the key executive committee. Everyone thought tying St. Louis into the branding of the region as a whole made far more sense and would put really the face of the region, the airport, in that prominent name of St. Louis, which so many of our other institutions are that the city is known for. So they felt very supportive of that. They all wrote letters of support for that, which I did share with all of the commissioners, and I'm happy to send on. Maybe Ms. Christen's already done that. And then with the family, during that month period, I met several times with some of the family members. There's not many family members left. And most of them are great-grandchildren, but there is one direct grandson who's probably in the 80s, who's out in Idaho, who we've had lots of conversations with. Kingman Lambert, he still actually is the one that carries the name. But when we originally looked at this, we had at Lambert Field at the end. And the reason for that was we felt that would give a little more prominence to the Lambert family. We felt if we kept the presence of Lambert Field and knowing that, you know, it was kind of specified that would be something that the family would appreciate. As this open month, and we spent a lot of time talking to them, they were worried that because it was at the end, that in the future, even though it may not be this administration, but someone would want to just drop that off. And they really wanted to be able to have the Lambert a little bit more prominent. They understood our rationale for the marketing of the region and wanting St. Louis at the forefront, especially on an international level. When we talk about the region in St. Louis, no one knows that Lambert is St. Louis. So you really, you know, it put that name out there of who we are. The family was very supportive of that, has written also a very nice letter of thank you to all of the airport commissioners as well as the staff for hearing their concerns, and very supportive of St. Louis being first, but keeping Lambert prominent. So I just wanted to share that with everybody as well. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So the change is from Lambert-St. Louis International Airport to St. Louis Lambert
Right.
International Airport.
And I guess one more thing I should add, I'm sorry, gentlemen, is that from a legality standpoint, we do have to submit this to the FAA. We've kept them in the loop. They're supportive of it. It's just a paper transaction. It's not a financial transaction. So once we have final approval, we would have to go to the FAA. That would be turned around relatively quickly from them, but there is one other aspect that we have to do once we get final approval through the Board of Aldermen.
And while this name change probably isn't the biggest challenge facing the airport, we all recognize that it's just one little piece of what we're trying to do with the airport. And if you think of other airports around the country, it's Chicago O'Hare, Washington National, New York LaGuardia, you know. So it's a sort of a common thing, even though there are many other airports that we do call by a name other than Chicago, for example. So
About
that's still in the name.
70% of the top 100 airports have a geolocator at the beginning of the name, meaning it's the region or the city that it's served. And there's a reason for that. It's just because you have an audience well beyond your local area that you're trying to market to. And one of the feedback we got just on the street is that our director of air service marketing does go to Europe and does work with the airlines that trying to get, and they really have no connection to the Lambert name, and so, but they know where St. Louis is, and so this is a foundation piece of us trying to, not only, it's not just a name change, but eventually a marketing change, and we want those to sync up. So this is the first phase of that.
Okay.
And STL, which is our city code, and we're fortunate that our city code actually matches where we're at. At some airports, they, you know, that's
Like
a hard
Kansas
trend.
City, that doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
MCI doesn't. Yeah.
Like, where
so
is that?
for us, you know, STL is really kind of the focus of, you know, making sure. And if you've been out to the airport lately, you'll see that, you know, periodically we have the banners, on the sign poles, and we changed them to show the STL. So just trying to really reinvent the whole who we are as a region.
Okay. And do you want to talk a little bit about cost? I know
Sure.
Joe had a question about that. Let's
Right.
just, yeah.
One of the things that we were very committed to doing, and we talked about this as a whole, is that the budget was not going to be increased as a result of this. We're not an airport that has marquee signs, so we have about 3 signs that have Lambert-St. Louis on it. You have the one as you come into Terminal 2. We looked at that. That's about an $8,000 cost. If we go outside, we could do it inside for about half of that. We have an incredible sign shop that does the majority of all the signs at the airport. There's a couple of other ones that you see, which are the blue signs, which about 4 years ago, we went through a sort of a rebranding, and part of the experience is putting the new blue signs up. All those is a matter of changing out the letters on those. It's not even the actual signs themselves. So from a signage standpoint, it's minimal. And we have an ongoing budget to replace signs, to be able, as they get faded, to repaint them, to change the lettering out. So that's just part of using that. If you look at all of our vehicles, again, this isn't something, the vehicles aren't that important that we have day one, the name change on them, but as new vehicles come online, or as you get vehicles that are faded and they go through paint jobs, the signage on that would change out as well. Again, that's an ongoing internal maintenance item. Same with letterhead and stuff. Business cards, all of that will be attrited out. And as we get new letterhead in that we're ordering, we'll be able to put the new logo on it. Jeff has a marketing budget annually, and part of that we'll look at then, okay, what should the new logo look like? That's within his existing budget. We currently have 2 different marketing teams that are on our, we have H&L, which is really with Brian on the air service development side, and then Jeff has currently Boxing Clever. So we have agreements with them, we have a budget for them. That would just be something that becomes part of that. So we committed to all of the commissioners and certainly to the mayor that we would not look at increasing our budget, that it would be something that we just have absorbed as part of the
I'm
existing.
sure you've been using down your letterhead, right? Your
We
business
have.
cards.
We have. And we have, as we thought about this, we've been talking about this for a year, we really have not ordered anything new, been trying to think ahead and think about, as we go through this. But, it's just like anything, you have an ongoing budget to have signs, to have new equipment, to have all of that, so it's just part of that, and there's no increase in it to do it.
Okay. Questions, Alderwoman Behringer.
I have no questions.
Alder Carl Coon, Alderwoman Howard.
Is
Oh,
there any?
excuse me.
Oh, Vaccaro.
Skipped right over you, Alderman Vaccaro.
Yeah, so you're saying the total amount, the sign changes are gonna be 8,000 and no more than that?
No, but it may not even be that, because we'll
So-
probably do it internal. I
So,
think,
but there's gotta be, I guess I just have trouble believing the total cost of changing them signs is gonna be less than
Joe, the
8,000.
signs don't say St. Louis Lambert. The signs either have airport, the signs have Terminal 1, Terminal 2. So we've done an inventory. So you have the one that comes into Terminal 2, which is that grounded one. You have the 2 overhead signs coming in from each end, which we're not changing those out. It'll be a matter of replacing the lettering on them and going back. Those are the signs that physical, if you look at things, as I said, as the vehicles and stuff, so we don't have huge marquee. Now, would I love to have someone sponsor and put in a huge marquee sign that says STL? We would, but we don't have that. We don't have, if you drive up to the airport and you drive down the boulevard, the signs don't say Lambert-St. Louis International Airport, other than the 2 big overheads and the one. Everything else is, where your terminal is, where your gate is, or they have the little airplane, or they say airport, or they say, terminal. So it's.
And nothing inside. I mean, it just seems like I remember seeing more.
I don't think we have anything on the
Yeah.
inside.
Well,
Digital, but.
I can say that we're beginning to look at the inventory and what that is, and, this is the first phase of looking at that. And we haven't gotten a full grasp of the inventory. A lot of it is digital, so
Yeah.
we have a website that we can easily change. We have digital directories that's just a graphic and stuff like that. I would say majority of it from day one that impacts the public will be the digital interfaces, the digital and the website. But we're beginning to assess that, exactly where's the impact from everywhere we go. But there are many more airports that have far more bigger presence with their signs, from the marquees, and which are, but we have 2 highway roadway signs, and the one at Terminal 2 are the most prominent. But we're beginning to evaluate, this is certainly the first phase, though, is the name change.
Doesn't it have it on the sister city board?
We don't have a sister city board. We don't.
Well, I see them. Who does those? I mean, I know that when they put
That
the
would be,
signs-
if it's on
I
our
know that
property, it
when
would
they
be our
put-
sign shop.
Right, and I know that when they put the signs on for the sister cities, it's the airport that put them on.
We
Right,
don't
well-
have a sister city board.
They do.
We don't. The
Well,
airport.
somebody does.
Oh.
Okay.
Not at the airport. Where's it at?
It's at the airport.
Where?
As you're leaving the airport, there's 2 sister city signs.
Okay.
That actually list the sister cities that say, welcome to, and it has the airport's name, and then it's got,
I don't
Well,
think
if
there's
it's a
sister
minor
board.
sign, it'd be a minor cost, and if it's on airport property, it would be, again, part of that ongoing budget of signs by our sign shop, yeah. Again, that's a reason for, us doing an inventory, and that will be, really begin in earnest here. We'll look at all the smaller details of that, but again, this is certainly the first part of that.
And we had, one of the things that was budgeted was an ongoing revamping of the website, and that, a couple of years ago, we looked at that, and that was in Jeff's budget to do. So again, that piece is all the digital piece, but, as you do with any website, you gotta keep up with the times. So there was a budget that was in there to redo the website anyway, so that'll be part of it, so.
well, I know there's sister city.
I'll look, I think they're gone. I don't think they're there, Joe, but
No,
I'll look.
again, that's
They're-
good to know.
They were there not that long ago, because we went out, because they added, I believe what was the Italian one, which would be Bologna,
Mhm.
and
Well,
the
again, I mean,
whole
that's
Italian
probably.
community came out.
So my
They
question is,
blessed-
do those signs
they
say
blessed the
Lambert
sign-
St. Louis International
I
Airport?
believe they
Okay.
do.
Well, look, if they
Bless
do,
them,
our
there's a
sign
sign
shop
that-
will.
I've got a
to
note to
St.
take a look
Louis,
at it,
yeah.
and so we'll add it to our inventory about a potential change, yeah.
Yeah, so I just have trouble believing it's gonna be like $8,000 or less for the.
Well,
names.
again, we have an internal sign shop, so they do all of our signs today. So it's part of the existing budget. I mean, they change out our signs all the time. They get faded because of the sunlight on the roadways, they paint them. So that's just all part of the ongoing maintenance and upkeep of the airport to make sure that you've got an airport that's presentable, so.
So there won't be any additional people added to the sign shop or,
No.
And the marketing companies, how much is that gonna be?
Well,
So if you
again, it's
mentioned
within-
2 marketing companies.
It's with the marketing company's already out there on our budget, they were through RFPs. This is a small piece of that, so there was no increase in the budget from the marketing companies. We have marketing companies both on Jeff's side and on Brian Kinsey's side, who does air service development. That budget was set, put out long ago, an RFP was put out, and we're within that RFP. So it's just ongoing things within that. There has been no added monies, and this will be one of those things that they look at.
Right, so
I guess
it's,
I misunderstood, Jeff. I thought you said there was 2 different companies, marketing companies.
right, there's two contracts, we're contracted with 2 companies, one for public relations, which is what I handle, and one for air service marketing, and those contracts have been in place for 3 years.
Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
nothing added to
Yeah.
that.
It's not related to the name change, these are
No,
ongoing contracts?
they're ongoing
Ongoing
contracts,
contracts,
yes,
correct,
part of it,
right.
yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. Alderwoman Howard?
I only have one question. So there's no charge working with the FAA
No.
for any changes?
No, it's just a paper exercise.
Okay.
Alderwoman Ingracia?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for taking a fresh look at this and for being conscientious about the cost.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Behringer had another question.
I just wanted to say, when we're looking at the name change,
Mhm.
clearly it was to increase our, people
Right.
knowing where St. Louis
Sure.
is,
Right.
bring more people to the city, make it easier for us to be, marketed and PR. So I'm gonna assume that any costs at all would be offset by the increase in traffic to our airport and by the good PR that we would receive. That's my thought process, so if I'm wrong, correct me.
No, and I think, what I think is important for people to understand is, at an airport, just like in any organization, you have an ongoing budget. You have a budget for marketing, you have a budget for sign replacements, you have a budget. So this is all within the budget. And Antonio is my
Pac-Man. So if he ever sees anything coming out of line, you know, it's his responsibility to make sure. But I think it's important for people to understand that this is not a financial exercise, and it's not about spending money. It is about who we are as a city and an airport, and how do we link that. And, you know, when I came to this job, one of the first things I heard was that our airport is not connected to our city. We don't feel that connection. We don't feel like it's a part of who we are as a city, and a branding effort. And we've worked very hard and rolled out the strategic plan. And you think of the St. Louis Arch, you think of the St. Louis Botanical Gardens, the St. Louis Art Museum, the St. Louis History Museum, the St. Louis, everything is the St. Louis. And here we are, Lambert. Okay, well, what does that mean? What is it telling us about the region? So I think the impact of having that single unified brand, and any of the organizations that do marketing or that represent the city from a civic progress will tell you that they think it's very important that we as a region and as a city get on board with marketing St. Louis as a single brand. And so, we're really the last piece of that, so we're happy to try to move that forward.
And I concur, that's certainly you have an investment in the marketing plan and the strategy, and the return is what the strategic plan is asking for is a return on an improved relations with the community, improved perception of the airport, improved perception of the city and the region, and that's why we're going down this path, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Happy to entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept or
Pass out.
pass out Board Bill 104.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Alderwoman Behringer,
Aye.
Alderman Moore, Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderman Cone, Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia,
Aye.
Chairwoman Cruzen.
Aye.
5 aye votes do pass.
Thank you.
Thank you all very
Appreciate it.
much.